Hey, everybody. Anybody? Anyone? Is anyone there? I don't know. Welcome to another episode of Snubbed. This is episode number 5. And the movie I watched this time was The Public Enemy from 1931, starring James Cagney. This would have, had this been nominated, it would have been part of the 30 to 31 Oscars, which was the 4th Oscar ceremony. And it would have competed against Cimarron, East Lynne, Skippy, The Front Page, and Traderhorn. I will say that I had to go back and look. I wasn't sure if couldn't remember if I had liked Cimarron. I gave it 3 stars, so I guess I didn't think it was terrible. I don't really remember. I remember a little bit of it, but East Lynne and Traderhorn I did not like at all. And I did like Skippy and The Front Page. But Public Enemy, I think, in my opinion, was better than all of those. This was a really good movie. This is only the second one I've seen James Cagney in. He was in won't get to it for a little while on the list of podcasts, but in the 32 to, no wait, I think in the 1934 Oscars, he was in a movie called Here Comes the Navy, and that was the first thing I had seen him in. Wasn't what I expected in Here Comes the Navy from him, and so I was thinking that might be how he acts in every movie, and it turns out not really. He's a very good actor, which I'm not really reading the news here. People know that James Cagney's a good actor, and I believe in that episode for Here Comes the Navy, I read some information about him, and I think he's generally considered one of the greatest actors ever. So he was very good in this. Public Enemy is kind of the story of his character, Tom Powers, and how he kind of, starting in 1909 when he's a kid and going up through the 20s, and how he sort of his rise in organized crime, and sort of loosely based on some real events. And kind of like one of the other movies I watched, like a gangster movie, they had a bit of a disclaimer saying, this is not glorifying gangsters, it's condemning them. So a little bit of info here from Wikipedia. The Public Enemy, or Enemies of the Public in the UK, is a 1931 American pre-code gangster film produced and distributed by Warner Brothers. Film was directed by William A. Wellman and starring James Cagney, Jean Harlow, Edward Woods, Donald Cook, and Joan Blondell. Film relates the story of a young man's rise in the criminal underworld in Prohibition-era urban America. Supporting players include Beryl Mercer, Murray Cannell, and Mae Clark. Screenplay is based on an unpublished novel, Beer and Blood, by 2 former newspapermen, John Bright and Kubik Glasman, who had witnessed some of Al Capone's murderous gang rivalries in Chicago. In 1998, The Public Enemy was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. Screenplay by Henry F. Thew, produced by Darrell F. Zanuck. Cinematography, Devereaux Jennings, edited by Edward Michael McDermott. Distributed by Warner Brothers, release date April 23rd, 1931. The runtime of 83 minutes. Casting: Edward Woods was originally cast in the lead role of Tom Powers, and James Cagney was cast as Tom's best friend, Matt Doyle, until director Wellman decided Cagney would be more effective in the part and switched the 2 actors, but never reshot the sequences with the characters as children, which is why the child playing Cagney's role looks like Woods, while the one playing Woods' role looks like Cagney. Another reason for the switch is that the sound technology used in The Public Enemy was superior to that used in earlier films, making it no longer imperative to have an actor in the lead role who had impeccable enunciation. I was reading on IMDb, it said that switch of the actors and the child actors not being switched has caused confusion to this day for people. And I didn't notice that, I wasn't paying that close attention, but I certainly didn't notice that the one actor was taller than, James Cagney should have been. One funny thing I read on IMDb says, on the set one day, James Cagney stared at Jean Harlow's nipples and asked, likely in perfect innocence and good humor, "How do you keep those things up?" I ice them, Harlow said before trotting off to her dressing room to do just that. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's funny. Louise Brooks was the original choice for Gwen Allen, a woman with self-confessed weakness for bad men. She refused the role, which went to a younger actress, Jean Harlow. Tom's first girlfriend, Kitty, was played by May Clark, who was uncredited. Kitty is eventually dumped by Tom for Gwen after he pushes half a grapefruit into her face, the most famous scene in the movie. Joan Blondell played Mamie, Matt's girlfriend. She had already worked with Cagney in Sinner's Holiday and would work with him on two films which also came out this year, Other Men's Women and Blonde Crazy. Other films that they worked on together were The Crowd Roars, Footlight Parade, and He Was Her Man. Cagney once said that Blondell was the only woman he loved besides his wife. Donald Cook played Tom's brother, Mike. The grapefruit scene in a 1973 interview featured in Turner Classic Movies documentary, The Men Who Made the Movies. Wellman said he added the grapefruit hitting to the scene because when he and his wife at the time would get into fights, she would never talk or give any expression. Since she always had a grapefruit for breakfast, he always wanted to put the grapefruit into her face just to get a reaction out of her so she would show some emotion. He felt that this scene gave him the opportunity to rid himself of the temptation. According to Cagney, May Clark's ex-husband had the grapefruit scene timed and would buy a ticket just before that scene went on screen, go enjoy the scene, leave, then come back during the next show just in time to only see that scene again. That scene was parodied years later in the 1961 Cagney movie 123 when Cagney threatens Otto with half a grapefruit but then decides against doing so. The film featured a prologue apprising the audience that the hoodlums and terrorists of the underworld must be exposed and the glamour ripped from them, and an epilogue pointing to the moral that civilization is on her knees and inquiring loudly as to what is to be done. At the film's premiere in New York City, the film's prologue was preceded by a brief stage tableau with sinuous green lighting, which showed a puppet gangster shooting another puppet gangster in the back. Oh, it was Scarface that I watched that had a similar sort of message at the beginning and end. Okay, so on IMDb, and I guess this is maybe not true. I don't know which one is true, Wikipedia or this. In the Wikipedia I just read, it said that William Wellman came up with the grapefruit scene. But this says in IMDb, several versions exist of the origin. Oh, okay. Several versions exist of the origin of the notorious grapefruit scene, but the most plausible is the one on which both James Cagney and May Clark agree. The scene, they explain, was actually staged as a practical joke at the expense of the film crew, just to see their stunned reactions. There was never any intention of ever using the shot in the completed film. Director William A. Wellman, however, eventually decided to keep the shot and use it in the film's final release print. Those are two wildly conflicting versions where Wellman says he based it on wanting to put a grapefruit in his wife's face, and they say they just came up with it on the set. So no idea which one's true. So that's it. Yeah, it was very good. Very, very good. And like I said, I think I would say that this definitely was. This is the first one I think I've watched where I'm like, yes, this was snubbed. And at that time, they only had 5 movies. Again, I don't remember if it was a rule that they only had 5 movies because starting the next year, they went up to like 8 and then 10, 12. They definitely increased. And then in 1944, they went back to 5. But to me, this one was snubbed. Kind of like Scarface. Maybe it was because it's gangsters. Maybe it's because it was a little violent. It wasn't super violent. Scarface was more so. But even just being a little bit violent may have turned people off in the Academy. So I don't know if those are the reasons, but I do think that this one definitely should have been nominated when compared to some of the others. Like, and again, this is just me. I didn't like Eastland or Trader Horn, so at least this one should have had a shot over one of those two, in my humble opinion. That's it. See you next time.